It is my great pleasure to have you, my dearest viewer, on this PrimeLearn website. I welcome you. I am Tishana Bagesela Sarah, and I'm going to be handling Integrated Science of Primary 6. Our theme is human health. The topic is accidents and first aid, and the subtopic is nose bleeding. This is lesson 26, and in this lesson, we're going to discuss first aid and prevention of nose bleeding. Before we discuss first aid and prevention of nose bleeding, we need to remind ourselves about the meaning of nose bleeding. We looked at this in our previous lesson, and in case you missed it, you are free to go and watch it because it was so interesting. We said that nose bleeding is the flow of blood from the nose. Nose bleeding is the flow of blood from the nose. We looked at causes of nose bleeding, and we said over inhalation of dry air can cause nose bleeding. We also said that overblowing of one's nose can also lead to nose bleeding. Then we said taking food one's body is allergic to can also cause nose bleeding. We said that the word allergic means the abnormal reaction of the body towards a foreign substance. And we say that when some people eat some types of food, their body reacts abnormally to those foods. Then another cause, we said taking medication for a long time can also cause nose bleeding. My great and amazing learner, in this very lesson, we are going to understand the first aid for nose bleeding. From there, we are going to have a look at prevention of nose bleeding, how best we can prevent nose bleeding. My great and amazing learner, let's start right away by knowing the first aid for nose bleeding. In case someone has got that problem of nose bleeding, what can you do for him or her? Remember that first aid is the immediate help given to a casualty before being taken to the nearby health center. And we said that a casualty is a person who has got an accident and needs first aid. Therefore, we are going to look at that immediate help you can give to a casualty, you can give to a person who has got that accident of nose bleeding. The very first step you should take when giving first aid to a person who is bleeding, who has nose bleeding, is let the casualty sit and bend forward. Like you can have a look at our screen, this person is sitting and is bending forward. That is the very first step. Then the second step is pinch the upper sides of the nostrils. Pinch the upper sides of the nostrils. Like it's still, you can see this person is pinching the upper sides of the nostrils. Another one is encourage the casualty to breathe through the mouth to prevent overstraining of blood vessels in the nose. Remember that this blood is coming from the nose, and it is the same nose that a casualty is using for breathing. Therefore, advise a casualty to breathe through the mouth so that he or she doesn't cause straining of blood vessels. Remember, blood vessels are now transporting blood, and then you have to breathe, so it might be a problem. Therefore, encourage the casualty to breathe through the mouth to prevent overstraining of blood vessels. Another first aid you can give to this person is keep the head of the victim or keep the head of the casualty higher than the level of the head. Like you can have a look at your screen. This person's head is higher than the level of the heart. Therefore, keep the head of the casualty higher than the level of the heart. Then another thing that you should do with this person, put the eyes wrapped in a towel on the neck of the casualty. Put the eyes wrapped in a cloth or a towel on the neck of the casualty. And this makes the lining of blood vessels in the nostrils to be moist. This will help the blood vessels in the nose or in the nostrils to be moist. Remember, when these blood vessels are moist, the rate at which blood flows out of the nostrils or out of the nose reduces. Therefore, it is better you put the ice wrapped in a cloth or a towel so that blood that doesn't flow on that high speed, so that the blood starts clotting slowly by slowly. My great and amazing learner, having known the first aid you can give to a person whose nose is bleeding, let's get to know how best we can prevent nose bleeding. That is the prevention of nose bleeding. The very first way you can prevent nose bleeding is keeping the nostrils moist. It is better for you to make sure that the nostrils of that person whose nose is bleeding, the nostrils are moist. This is very important because when the nostrils are moist, this is going to make the lining of blood vessels moist, hence reducing the speed or the rate at which blood is flowing. Another thing we can do to prevent nose bleeding is taking citrus fruits. Taking citrus fruits. That word citrus fruits means the fruits that contain some acids in them. Fruits that contain some acids in them. And these fruits are very important. They help to boost the immunity of the body. And when the immunity of the body is boosted, blood clotting can easily take place. For example, if you cut yourself with anything sharp, let's say a razor blade, if you cut yourself, the time that your blood will take flowing out will depend on how strong your immunity is. So when your immunity is very strong, the blood will not take much time flowing. It will clot. That is what we call blood clotting. When you cut yourself and blood starts coming out and then eventually it stops and it clots, that is what we call blood clotting. It is very important to boost our immunity so that in case of any blood being shed, it can easily clot. We have citrus fruits like oranges, lemons, and very many others. They help to strengthen the lining of blood vessels. My great and amazing learner, I know that by now you are able to give the first aid to a person who has nose bleeding, and you are still able to control and prevent nose bleeding. Let's try to summarize what we've looked at in today's lesson. We have looked at first aid given to a person who is experiencing nose bleeding, and we have said that let the person sit and bend forward. Let that person keep the head higher than the level of the heart. Let that person pinch the upper part of the nose and make sure that you put ice wrapped in a towel on the neck of the casualty so that you moisten the lining of the blood vessels in the nostrils. Then, finally, we have looked at prevention of nose bleeding. We have said that make sure that you keep the nostrils moist. And another thing, you should take a lot of citrus fruits, which are lemons and oranges. My great and amazing learner, I am leaving you with a lesson test just below this lesson video. It is very simple as long as you understand everything that we've learned. In case of anything that you feel like you've not understood, you're free to replay this lesson video so that you answer all these questions correctly. Let's meet in our next lesson where we shall be introduced to foreign bodies in the body. Foreign bodies in the body. It will be very interesting. We shall be looking at the foreign bodies in the body passages. It will be so interesting. Don't miss it out. I love you so much. I remain Tishana Bagesela Sarah. I've been taking you through integrated science of primary 6. Let's meet then. I love you so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.